All righty, welcome one, welcome all. It is time for Three Guys Before the Game. Believe it or not, episode 599. That's right. One away from 600. That's kind of neat. Look who's with us. Yeah, look who's with us.
What? When am I not here now?
Well, but you're on vacation. You came in. This is very nice of you. This is our Christmas gift from you. We appreciate it, don't we, Brad?
A lot going on.
Very much appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Gotta be here.
This is our Georgetown game review and our Search Continues episode. It includes Hoppy's obvious observations plus spreads on stats plus textual healing. Three Guys brought to us by Comax Business Systems. What they do is they keep West Virginia's business data safe, secure, and efficient for 25 years. By Gomart. Get a Gomart rewards card. Have that bad boy on your phone, on the app, or in your pocket, and you save on food and fuel and pile up these rewards. GoMarket.com for the details, or just download the app. Three Guys brought to us by Lou Wendell Marine Sales in St. Albans. They sell family fun. Visit LouWendellMarineSales.com. Three Guys is brought to us by Tudor's Biscuit World. Start your day the homemade way, the Three Guys way with a Tudor's biscuit. They are tasty. They're savory. This time of the year when things are a little bit damp, cool, just makes your day, puts a big smile inside your body. Three Guys also brought to us by Conley CPA Group, providing value beyond numbers. Are you a business owner? You got business? You got business that you use phones in your business? Most people do use phones in their business. If you need a new phone system, visit ComaxWV.com. Why, you say? Well,
Why?
Because they can come into your business place and tell you exactly with an assessment what best would fit your needs when it comes to phones, and then give you a price quote, which is free, and then you can make a call. Dedicated phone lines. Basically, you got a dedicated line to wherever your employees are, whether they're in the physical building or not. From 1 to 1,000 lines, visit ComaxWV.com for their phone systems. Three Guys also brought to us by Lou Wendell Marine Sales in St. Albans. They sell family fun. Got yourself a pontoon boat. Think about it. Like if you're the best in your state at one thing, that's something to be proud of, right? Lou Wendell's the premier pontoon boat dealer in the state of West Virginia. Plus, they got those G3, those John boats.
Yeah.
They're kind of neat. Durability, dependability, and value for the avid outdoorsman. Don't bring me not an avid outdoorsman. If you're just like a milquetoast outdoorsman, this is for avid outdoorsmen. G3 Johns provide an array of all welded models for hunting, fishing, everything in between. Visit LouWendellMarineSales.com.
Plus, spring's just a couple days away.
Closer.
So as we ready, spring's just a couple days away.
Yeah, it's closer. Yeah.
Because soon the days will start getting longer, and before you know it, be out on the lake.
70s, 80s on the way.
Yeah. From the day we record, we're 13 days away from the days beginning to be longer, which is kind of neat. All right, West Virginia beat Georgetown in a fun basketball game on Friday. I say fun in the sense that you had to go through, you had to walk through some various uncomfortable places in the game in order to get over the proverbial hump. Then once you got over the hump, and it was game on. Game was tied at 43, and then everything blowed up as far as Georgetown goes, and West Virginia then ran them. And so the Mountaineers are now 6 up and 2 down on the season, 3 games to go before conference play starts, which means that they can equal last season's win total before they start league play, which is kind of nice. And so they've got North Carolina Central, and then they've got Mercyhurst, and then they've got Bethune-Cookman to close out and get yourself right. And then the surprising Kansas Jayhawks. And I say surprising in the sense that they've got a couple of losses after being number one, right? Got beat by Creighton at Creighton, and then Missouri yesterday was laying in wait for them. So your number one team, you got beat 2 in a row.
They just walked into 2 pretty tough environments. They were fired up that Kansas was coming to town.
Yes.
Creighton was lying in wait as well. So, 2 straight losses for the Jayhawks. They have NC State coming up on Saturday.
The Big 12, thank you, Oklahoma State, won the Big 12 Big East Challenge on the last day. It was yesterday. Oklahoma State went in, said, who's your coach? Holloway? Hollywood? Who is it? Going to run you. That's a big win for Oklahoma State.
It is.
That was not expected. I was looking at the games after the thing. I think they were up at one point like 4-2, the Big East was, if I'm not mistaken. But, Hoppy, that's the only game that a visiting team won in this event.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that's good. But it really emphasizes how important home court is in basketball. All right, Hoppy, thanks for coming in. We do appreciate it. Observations. What's going on in your mind?
Obvious observations. Number one, that was an important win against Georgetown because you're coming off the Bahamas where here's the team, they're off in the Caribbean and they're winning a couple games you didn't expect them to win. So what is it? Is that a one-off? Is that an aberration? Hey, come back, Brad, against a pretty good Georgetown team. I thought they were pretty good.
They played well.
Yeah, and they played hard. They played good defense. You're down in the first half. You're not shooting well, and Georgetown's defense has something to do with that. So what is this going to be? And you had the crowd wanting to see this Mountaineer team, and you win the game. So I thought it was an early season non-conference signature win that was important for this program, number one. And Coach DeVries said something interesting after the game about how they did not perform as well in the first half. He says, we have to play a certain way for us to be good. And Brad, you've talked about that too, is that West Virginia wants to do certain things. And a team that's good defensively that's able to take some of those things away, then put West Virginia in an uncomfortable situation. Fair?
Fair.
Okay. So there's that. And, of course, West Virginia continues to be one of the nation's leader in block shots. We know that as a shot blocking team.
Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah, number 3 in the country in blocking shots. Javon Small continues to impress. You knew what you're going to get with Tucker DeVries, but Javon Small now, game after game, continues to assert himself as a scorer and coming in with 26 in that game. So when the season began, you didn't know, except for Tucker DeVries, what you were going to get. And he's a guy. He's a scorer that teams have to account for. So I think, once again, a good performance by him. Georgetown with Sorber, big guy, highly recruited guy, held him under his average, held him to 13. The average is 16. So that stood out, I think. And now, as you pointed out, Tony, you have 3 games coming up, 3 winnable games. North Carolina Central, Bethune-Cookman, Mercyhurst should win all 3 of those games as you prepare for conference play. So if this goes as you would expect, you head into this conference schedule here in really good shape. Better than you would have thought. So
Correct.
So that's what I got.
The game changer is going to be the battle for Atlantis. All right? So realistically, going into the battle for Atlantis, if you got one win, you were happy. You were going to be happy, and to be honest with you, you were looking at it going like, okay, if we could get Davidson, with all due respect to Davidson, Steph Curry played there. If you could get Davidson in the last game and get out of there with a win, okay, it's probably going to be 1 and 2. Other than that, there was no easy money there, and they go out there and get those wins. So they put themselves up. Not only did they get 2 more than you probably thought they were going to get there, but they got 2 wins against ranked teams, which obviously helps them as far as their resume goes.
3 out of 4 games, you've won top 100 games. Now, that's pretty impressive. And I thought, even more so than just the Hop, everything you said there, other than just the win over an old-time rival, a good brand name, that's all great. And getting wins are, as we always know, you never apologize, you never qualify them, you just take the wins and move on. We certainly know that. But I thought the ability to win when you didn't have your fastball is particularly important for this group, and you did it in some different ways. You had to hang around in that game while shots weren't dropping, and Georgetown was doing a pretty good job slowing you down offensively. Your defense couldn't get going in terms of steals and easy buckets. You got some good looks, but they weren't falling, and you just hung around and stayed in there and kept that intensity going. And listen, guys, I thought the first half was a little bit of a team that was coming off a hard week of 3 very tough games, all in overtime, and then a week between games. I thought a little bit of that rust and sluggishness showed in the first half, and that's why I give those guys credit for all battling and staying in that game until it was able to turn. And it turned on that 17-0 run or 17-2 run, 14-0 run in there where you just absolutely blitzed them. And guys, it was changed by Eduardo Andre. That's who keyed it. Yeah. Javon Small was awesome, and you're right about the scoring. Like, you knew he was an all-conference level player when he arrived here, but they've asked him to be more assertive scoring starting in Atlantis, and that has really turned on. He has been just tremendous. Tucker, again, so valuable and a scorer. Toby Oconee, turning into your third consistent scorer, has been absolutely massive. That's 4 straight double-figure games for Toby Oconee. But make no mistake, Eduardo Andre changed that game. 4 second-half blocks, 2 other shots that he altered that cued breaks going the other way that allowed West Virginia to get some easy buckets. Tony and I talked during the game. First half, you weren't getting a lot of easy points off turnovers, and you weren't getting to the free throw line. So when you're not making shots, you try and get those 2 areas going to get you some buckets. In the second half, that changed. Both of those things started coming through. And then, oh, by the way, Hop, what happens when those 2 things are unlocked? Now some shots started dropping.
And what happened when you got to the free throw line?
Well, you made them. This team's been very good because the right guys are getting the free throw line and they're making it. So I thought just a tremendous effort, but a lot of credit to Eduardo Andre, who wasn't able to play in the final game in Atlantis. Didn't get a ton of minutes in Atlantis because why? Amani Hansberry was playing so well and creating matchup problems. This game, Hansberry didn't get a ton of minutes because Eduardo Andre was playing so well. So to me, even more so than the win, the ability to win without your best game and the ability to have other guys that you haven't seen yet take over games, took over a game, I think that bodes extremely well. Another individual performance we have to mention, I thought Sincere Harris, again, defensively, guys. I'm going to say it a lot. But he absolutely took Epps out of the game in the second half. And Epps is a really talented scorer and got some buckets. Tony, I thought in the first half where you went, oh, this is going to be a problem. He can really score. 1 of 8 in the second half, just 4 points. Sincere locked him up and even forced, I thought, Epps into, almost baited him into taking some bad shots late. And I thought that was a factor. Oh, by the way, Harris had 2 blocks and 9 rebounds from what is in essence your point guard position. You're getting 9 rebounds. So we talk about, or Darren's talked, that everybody's got a rebound on this team. There's an example. Harris gets you 9 rebounds. I thought he was excellent as well.
I'm doing some on-the-fly statistical work, which is always dangerous. But I don't think we're putting enough, not lauding Javon Small enough. You mentioned it, for what he's doing. So just off the top of my head, Javon Small in his last 5 games has scored 23, 31, 26, 14, and 26. So I says to myself, when was the last time a Mountaineer basketball player scored 23 or more points in a stretch of 4 out of 5 games? So I went to, you go to the granddaddy, go to Deshaun Butler, okay? Deshaun Butler never did that.
Really?
As a senior, he never did that. Now, he scored a ton of points, don't get me wrong. I mean, he went 22, 21, 15, 24, 20, but he wasn't 23 or more in 4 out of 5 games. He had a stretch where he went 27, 18, 33, 13, 32. You know what I mean?
That's pretty good, too.
I mean, that's really good, what I'm saying. But he's the gold standard, right? He's the 3rd all-time scorer. Now, so I said, okay, what about more? Now, the guy that did do it most recently was Coach Eric Stevenson. So he had, if you remember, he had a 5-game run.
Yeah, he got hot there.
Auburn was in that mix.
Lightning hot. He went 27 Baylor. He went 23 Oak State, 23 Kansas, 23 Iowa State, 27 K-State. And that was that stretch. And he did that. But he had a 5-game stretch. Anyways, my point to that is what we're seeing Javon Small do is an extreme rarity when it comes to scoring. And I'll guarantee you, it hasn't been done from the point guard spot. You're probably going to have to go back to Greg Jones.
I was just thinking.
Maybe Greg Jones. And I'll look at that here in a second. Maybe he did it. I don't know, but that's a ton of points.
Probably. Are you counting when he banked in?
Well, sure. That's late night banking hours.
When he banked that in, you just keep shooting because
they were due because they had a lot of good shots in the first half that didn't fall. So generally that regresses and balances out, right? So you're due to hit some shots that are really difficult there. Here's the other thing about Javon where he's so valuable, and again, we talked about this a lot this summer when he was coming in. He also gave you 5 rebounds and 4 assists, right? And I mentioned the 9 rebounds by Harris. Tucker gives you 7 rebounds, 3 assists. So they're just getting contributions from all those guys in all areas. And again, I continue to be impressed by the offense this team runs, the sets that Darren gets them in, and then the guys' command of what the different options are continue to be really good. A lot of this, guys, this is not spreads on stats, but some numbers. This helps your offense, and this helps your scoring, Hop. You want to put this in your obvious observations?
Yeah.
Tucker's shooting 47% from three. Javon, 41% from three. Toby, 38% from three. That's three. That's two that are having unbelievably blistering hot years, and then Toby right there pushing 40%. Pretty good.
Do you have enough? Do you have enough to say this is a really good indication of what you're going to be, of the potential, or is this going to be adjusted here soon when you get into conference play?
It will be adjusted, and here's why. Right now, the whistle has been really good. And
except for Louisville.
Yeah. The fragile nature of this roster composition is that the guys we've just been praising, one of those guys sits down, the entire dynamic changes. Now, you were able to, Amani had his one game where he had fewer minutes, and you were still able to get through it. Well, that was a Louisville game, right? He had limited minutes, and so the answer to your question is you're running on a really, really fine line until you get a deeper bench.
You're right. There's two things, Hop, and that's first and foremost, because that's every night you hold your breath. Don't call two ticky-tack reach fouls on Javon or you're in trouble. Correct. Don't call two calls on Tucker where he's going up trying to defend and Tucker has to sit. So your margin for error on those calls, and it's not one of those two guys. I mean, you basically take out a starter from this lineup and you're challenged. And then the other obvious, knock on wood, is injury. That's the part that you worry about is foul trouble early. 2 fouls early changes the composition, and then obviously an injury takes you out of what you're doing as well. I think what this does show you, I think it does give you a couple things. I think, one, it shows you on any given night or on every night you can line up and expect to compete. Mm-hmm. Now, will there be some 20-point losses? Chances are yes, because this league's a beast. You're going to get some teams that guard. You're going to have some nights where your shot's not going and your legs aren't there. So you're going to have some losses that we come in and go, oh, that wasn't pretty. But I think every night you go into a game against anybody in this league, you just took down Gonzaga. So you go into this against any team and go, okay, let's go, take your shot. Mm-hmm. I think it also shows you this team has a ton of potential as it's currently constructed. And I also think it's shown you have a high level of confidence in this staff, how recruiting has started and how these guys have played and the adjustments that are being made, that you're on the right path moving forward. I think I'm very comfortable saying that as we sit here on December 9.
I would also think that league-wide, teams in this conference, the other 15 schools, or those that have to come to Morgantown that had penciled in a win in Morgantown, probably are going like, that may not be the guaranteed win we thought. And I also think that West Virginia is looking at some of these games based upon other results from team members going like, you know what?
What are they doing over there?
Yeah, we thought maybe that we wouldn't have a shot against, fill in the blank team, or, we can go play with those guys, And so I think a little bit of that's going on as well.
Yep, totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
All right, coaching search, and we hesitate to say anything because we're recording on Monday afternoon at 1:05 Eastern Time, 12:05 Central. So there's nothing more fluid than a coaching search. And so literally as it comes out of our mouth here, it could date itself. Like we could be at 90 minutes from now when we're done and upstairs, it might go like, that's all done here. So we can fire stuff out there. What can we say that maybe puts some context that will still be valid?
I'll say this. I do think there were a couple names. We said last week when we last record Thursday, we said keep an eye on Friday's games. Right. There's going to be a lot of guys coaching in that game that chances are good as that wide net was cast. Have been in conversations, or you've been looking at resumes there. And I think a couple of those are now off the board. So I think that's of note. Barry Odom going to Purdue, which quite frankly was a little bit of a surprise taking the Purdue job. That's a job, Hop, that's had some significant challenges over the last couple of years. So Barry Odom was a name you heard a bunch. So he's headed to UNLV. John Summerall was a name that was discussed, the Tulane coach. He decides last night to stay at Tulane. That's significant, not just at West Virginia, but also at North Carolina, where his name had been linked ranked as well. So those are two names that are off the list right away. I think some others are still circulating out there. Jeff Monken is a guy that's highly thought of, right, with that Army team. Jamie Chadwell is a guy at Liberty that is still being talked about. The coordinator-wise, Andy Kotelnicki. Rich Rod is still a name that's being discussed for obvious reasons around this job. So there's still some that I think you could include in that net, that wide net, that are still available, but I think a couple significant names off the board this weekend.
Yeah, I think that's accurate and where things are, and we don't have any additional like inside sources say those kinds of things, but I think that's a fair observation. Also, here is a projection that the longer it goes on and the more some of these people either say they're staying or take other jobs, the more Rich Rod's stock goes up. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
When you started to make that statement, I thought he was going to come back here with his odds. Like, was he going to reevaluate his odds from the last episode?
I probably do, because I had Rich Rod at 5-1. Probably got to move that up now some.
Odds are fluid, just like the coaching search is.
5-2, 5 to, I don't know how to do odds.
Clearly. I know. That's okay. Just talk. Just say what you're going to say. Don't worry about the odds.
Okay, just
Why don't you do this, Hoppy? Why don't you put a percentage on it? He'll take care of the rest.
Don't even worry about the percentage odds. Just go ahead. I think your point is what the point is.
Yes, right.
As those candidates come off the board, then you're looking at a smaller list of possibilities.
Right.
Then I think you are looking at Rich and saying, is that something that can work? Because listen, as we said going into the search, I think this is the hardest sport to hire a coach for, and I don't think I'm breaking new ground to say that. So you're trying to get as many certainties as you can, and I think with anybody in this candidate pool, there were questions around that. There's going to be things that you say, yeah, but about every one of those, and Rich is no different. The good about Rich is well known. We don't have to go over it. The challenges, if you bring Rich Rodriguez in, are also well known. And what's the risk reward composition of that? That's for Ren to decide. But I think that's certainly more of a possibility as we sit here on Monday than it would have been back on Thursday.
Yes, yes, exactly. Also,
that's not the only candidate that would have been on an original list that is still available. So I think that's worth noting.
And nobody wants to hear this, but it is, if you're looking at this objectively, that it's a Power 4 job, Big 12, good job. There are, it's hard to win here, okay? This is one of these schools where it's hard to win, like a lot of schools. And they just fired a coach who I think is pretty well regarded in coaching circles who couldn't win here. So the fact that Summerall wants to stay at Tulane, and we don't know if he got offered the job or anything. We don't know anything about that. But the fact that somebody like Summerall maybe wouldn't jump at the job if he was being considered, it tells you too, like, I'm okay where I am right now. Right? You follow my thinking?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I think that's clear what Summerall said.
Yeah. That
I like my spot where I am. I think I can win again. And I think there's another job out there that I can go get in the next cycle potentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Where I think, if you want to keep down the road of speculation, I think Barry Odom said the opposite.
Yeah.
I think Barry Odom said, I've been to 2 straight Mountain West title games here. I cannot do anything else. I have got to go, and hopped on Purdue.
And go to Purdue, which is like a coaching netherworld in football. And then you do your best. Maybe your coaches are by nature optimists. You think you can win, but in 3 years or 4 years, you get fired and you get paid $12 million.
Yeah, I do think it's significant, too, as we sit here on Monday afternoon, that North Carolina remains open, too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, most people said that was the premier job that was open this cycle. They have not landed on anybody yet either. That's Jamie Chadwell's name being thrown about there. But listen, to your point on Summerall's thing, Jamie Chadwell's got a heck of a job. There are a lot of people that consider Liberty the best group at 5 job that is available in terms of resources, in terms of what they pay their coach. So that's something to keep an eye on too.
Yeah. As I said, very fluid. I'd be stunned if there isn't something done, right, in the next couple of days.
Agree.
Yeah. And it's Monday. So it's going to happen, but exactly where, don't know yet. There's some fascinating things to these coaching searches, just the names, how it works. Like Scott Frost went back to UCF this week.
Yeah, that was another significant piece of news this weekend. Yeah.
That's a wow.
Yeah.
Because has that job changed since he left?
Yeah, see, isn't that a similar discussion between him going there and Rich here? because that's a different UCF job than what it was.
Yeah.
This West Virginia job is different, obviously, than when Rich left.
Well, because everything's changed, right? Everything's changed.
Well, not just in the mechanics of football with the portal and the paying, just the job itself in terms of what league you're in is different for both UCF and West Virginia.
Yeah.
You don't think that UCF would have won that natty there with Frost?
That probably would have been more difficult.
Right,
There's no question.
More of a chance. Wouldn't have that sign up there on the top of the stadium. Natty. Probably wouldn't have that. You ready for some numbers?
Mm-hmm.
What do you say we do some numbers?
So I check the numbers. We'll just go right to the numbers. Here comes a heater.
All right, here we go.
Let's jump into the analytics.
This is Spreads on Stats. It's brought to us by the Conley CPA Group. What do? Well, they provide value beyond numbers. That's right. Approaching the 40th year of anniversary there at their shop. Outsourcing accounting, they can take care of that for you. They can do some of it. They can do all of your accounting. Don't have to be on your property to do that. They can outsource your CFO services for you.
Can they help me with the odds thing I'm struggling with?
I think we get Mike over there at Conley. He could probably help you with that. Probably teach you how to also do some, he can. I'll call him after the show. Conley CPA Group also providing other areas, including audit and assurance, tax planning preparation, consulting, and advisory. It's Conley CPA Group. And here we go. Spreads on Stats.
Do a little basketball numbers for you.
Right, yeah.
Go back to Georgetown for just a second. I think this is another key part of West Virginia's success this season. They had a game against Arizona earlier this year where their assist rate was 78%. So they assisted on 78% of their made baskets, which is a massive number. Darren's teams at Drake were generally right in that 50% range, which is good. Those extra passes, those assists, those moving the ball have led to this. Against Georgetown, West Virginia had 15 catch-and-shoot jumpers. Okay? 15 catch-and-shoot jumpers on the game. 10 of them were unguarded. 10 of the 15 were unguarded. Open looks, in essence, Hop.
Yeah.
That extra pass moves it. Got open looks, okay? Let's put some context to that. West Virginia's had more unguarded than guarded jump shots in 6 of 8 games this season.
Wow.
Okay? 1 game was even, and 1 game was more guarded than unguarded. 6 of 8.
Who was more guarded, Pitt?
I can't remember that one. I think it was Pitt.
Yeah.
So there's only 1 game with more guarded jump shots. Last year.
Yeah.
So there's been 6 games this season already where there's more unguarded jump shots. Last year, there were 3 all season out of 32.
Wow.
You've doubled that number in 1/4 less games, in 1/4 of the games. In the 2022-23 season, you only had 5 games out of 34 that had more unguarded than guarded. So you surpassed that total.
That's incredibly interesting.
And you're not far off from surpassing the combined total of the last 2 years. You'll probably get that in the next couple of days, next couple of games. Pretty remarkable.
That is.
So you want to look at just one aspect of what is creating some success. I mentioned the shooting percentages from 3 of those 3 guys. We know Jonathan Powell can shoot it as well. Hansberry can shoot it. So you got some shooters, but you're also getting guys good looks based on the offense you're drawing up and the unselfishness of these players and understanding sometimes you pass up a good shot for a better shot. Mm-hmm. And I thought that number really jumped out to me.
Huh. You think that further defines the fact that the ball moves faster than feet?
It moves very fast.
I just think.
And now when you take that ball and you throw it, right, you have a better chance to get an open shot than standing there and pounding it into the floor like this. Better chance probably get an open look. Would you agree with that?
I think there's a truism that exists, and the game has changed a lot. But the ability to pass the ball and move it, making the defense move, thereby catching the defense out of position, continues to remain something that you do. And listen, that's changed a lot for a lot of teams in this era of I'm going to take you off the bounce and I'm going to go one-on-one to the basket, right? That we see more teams that get caught in that one-on-one isolation than they do moving it. West Virginia is not one of those teams through 8 games.
How about, Brad, also related to that spacing and being in the right place.
Yeah, and those are all interconnected, and that goes back to what we said about Darren's offense, his ability to draw up offense, the motion. And you say motion offense a lot, Hop, in college basketball, but that's one thing when you watch West Virginia. It's not motion for like 12 seconds and then it stops being motion. It's just continuous motion, and ultimately that gets you some shots. But that number to me was pretty eye-opening. Let's do some season numbers kind of along these lines about your run good stuff and your ability to create good shots that then hopefully turn into baskets. A lot of times what you'll point to is after timeout performance when you're talking about this is like, what's a team look like when it runs offense? Well, how about West Virginia coming out of timeouts? Tony, you ready for this? You'll like this.
Yeah.
West Virginia in the top 4% nationally in points per possession coming out of a timeout.
You know why that is, Hop?
Runs good stuff.
Runs good stuff, yeah.
West Virginia is shooting 56% from 2-point range and 44% from 3 coming out of a timeout. 23% of West Virginia's points came following a timeout against Georgetown.
So
Nearly
let's
a quarter.
let's put this into context. You mind me jumping in here?
Go ahead. Open forum here during this segment, of course.
This is
you already
why,
knew that, though.
Yeah. This is why I'm very, very happy and very excited about this team, because I know who they've played. You can have some numbers on the 9th of December in the past,
Yeah,
where you've played just a bunch of, teams that are going to finish in really poor spots.
All due respect.
Yeah, and you got these inflated numbers. Again, Pitt, Georgetown, Arizona, Gonzaga, and Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Right? So that's what makes it go. Again, this team is going to have ups and downs. It's just impossible not to. But you're building a really nice foundation, and you're going to have some days where you're going to have some victories this season that perhaps you didn't think you would when the thing was starting.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Tucker, one of the best nationally on the season coming out of a timeout. He's top 15% in points per possession, 60% from 3. We were talking about that the other night, right? On those baseline out of bounds in particular. They like to look for him on those, but out of timeouts, Tucker's been extremely good as well. You make a great point, Tony. I do trust these numbers a little bit more early because of the strength of the competition, so that was a good point by you on that. The other part, too, we talked about this Thursday, so let's circle back to this. We projected that the crowd would be really good on Friday night. It was. They showed up. A little bit late arriving there, though. I was a little bit concerned.
You got nervous about that. I didn't.
You didn't. You said all along it's going to be fine.
Well, here's what happens. It's Friday.
Yeah.
And people didn't anticipate that it was going to be as big of a crowd as there was. They thought they could do the old Mom Boulevard sneak in. And what happens is everyone had the same idea. So I knew they'd be coming, and it did fill up.
And you were right, because by the time that thing got going in a couple minutes after the tip-off, you look around and it was filled. And that mattered, right? That mattered, and you heard Darren talk about that, and his sideline demeanor adds to the crowd getting into it, right? He encourages that. He gets into it. But you could see those players were buoyed up. And it was one of those, Tony, we talked about it in pregame. That was a major factor in that game, as the Coliseum has been over the years.
100%.
But it definitely was Friday for a Georgetown team that had not been on the road yet, right? West Virginia was the best opponent it had faced, but it's the first time it had been on the road. And you saw them in the midst of that stretch, I thought, got outside themselves a little bit and forced some quick and probably bad shots for them that they didn't want.
They had a sequence there.
And that kept that snowball going to the point that West Virginia ran away with it. So I thought this was one of those where you can directly point to the crowd and the loudness of that crowd that had Georgetown flustered.
Yes, agreed. And we talked with some of the Georgetown folks before the game, and that's what they said. We said, what do you think? And they said, we just don't know because we're so young, and this is our first time on the road, and we know about this building. And the building came to life, and it did have a huge impact. The building was bouncy, good. It'll get better. Just much like the team. The crowd also has its non-conference portion of the season, right? And they build up.
But about halfway through that run, it was pretty loud.
They showed that they were ready for conference play.
That high end of that was loud.
Yeah. But the other part of that equation is a gentleman, and I'm sure you've got data. You got data points. I'm sure you have data points on a gentleman by the name of Eduardo Andre, because he was massively important in that game.
Yeah, as we
What's
talked,
Pro Football Focus have? What Pro Football Focus
about
have?
a 95 on that. As we talked earlier in this program, I thought he was the key to the game. He turned that game, and that ignited the crowd with those blocks. So I thought that was worth noting. Good job, crowd, at the Coliseum on Friday. You want a quick North Carolina Central preview while we're here?
Well, sure. We're going to play tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll kind of lump this into the spreads on stats number because I got some numbers for you. So this is a big step up, Hoppy, for the Eagles. Their highest-ranked opponent so far is number 78, George Mason, in the season opener. That was a loss for NC Central. Over the last 10 games after the opener, they have played 5 teams that are 200 or worse in Ken Palm and 2 teams that are just unranked because they're lower division teams. So West Virginia has a distinct advantage coming up tomorrow. This Eagle team has struggled defensively. Bottom 15 in opponent effective field goal percentage, bottom 5 in defensive rebounding, bottom 5 in opponent 2-point field goal percentage. So teams haven't shot the 3 well against the Eagles, but when teams are shooting 75% at the rim and 71% from 2 in the first 10 seconds of the shot clock against them, you probably don't need to shoot a lot of threes. They have, however, North Carolina Central has turned teams over at a high rate. They're actually 8th nationally in opponent turnover percentage. So that's the stat that Darren goes to first. You protect the ball against NC Central, you're probably going to be all right. They are dead even on points off of turnovers with West Virginia, which is impressive because West Virginia is one of the best in the country with that number. They shoot it well from 3, 38%, slightly better than West Virginia's 37%. Here's worth noting, Tony, you will like this one. Their best player, leading scorer, one of the best names in college basketball. Have you already looked at this? This is classic.
Who is a Scientific Map?
Scores 18 a game. No, Scientific Map was a good one, as was God Shamgon.
Yes.
No, we would be referring instead to Po Boy King.
Po
Boy King comes in scoring 18 a game.
How's he spelling that?
I did it phonetically here. It's a different spelling.
Po Boy?
Yeah, just scroll down there. You can see it on the screen you're looking at.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's scoring 18 a game. Good finisher at the rim, Hoppy. 79% field goal percentage at the rim. So Eduardo Andre, can he alter those? And, of course, West Virginia's other premier shot blockers on this team with their great height will probably cause North Carolina Central some trouble at the rim. Because you can't just get to the rim easily against this West Virginia team. And everybody knows that now.
Leading one of the top teams in the country in blocking shots. What's the line on this?
Literally.
Well, Hoppy, I was just going to get into that. Thank you for asking, since you've become one of the chief odds makers in the state of West Virginia. Here was my question to you guys.
Hop on spreads.
West Virginia will be favored by 20 or more points in each of its next 3 games.
Okay.
So the question is, besides 3 victories, what should and what can West Virginia do to make itself a better basketball team in these 3 games before the fights of the Big 12 break out?
I think there's one easy answer that you're looking for.
What is it?
You want to make sure you get control of these games early enough that you get your starters some rest and get some bench minutes in from some guys.
Okay, let me ask you this then.
That's first and foremost.
So you're talking
Play
about
some guys.
You're talking about a guy named Jake Auer.
I certainly hope Jake gets some clock too, but I mean guys like KJ and Powell and even Harris needs to get some minutes. I think guys need to get minutes.
Absolutely. So let's do an over-under. Jake Auer, the designated 3-point specialist for the Mountaineers who played at Valley High School.
Second best shooter in Valley High School history, well documented.
Behind you.
Unconfirmed on that. Over under, how many threes does he have in this 3-game stretch? The line is 3.5.
Does he take
the
or
number's
make?
3.5?
Take or make?
No, he has to make
over.
He makes over 3 in the next 3 games. You're saying Auer, who's got 2 on the season.
Doesn't he have 3? He had 2 in 1 game.
Yeah, I think he has 2. I don't know.
He get 1 against Charleston?
Well, his exhibition doesn't count.
What's over?
You say
elite
he's
shooter. He's going to get on the floor. He's going to run some stuff. You're going to get open.
You got to raise the
I just told you get a lot of unguarded catch and shoots.
Okay, so Auer's 3.5. You're on over on that?
That hits over.
Okay, fine. By the way, you spell Po Boy King, capital P, small o, apostrophe, capital B, O-I-G-H, King. Po Boy King.
Awesome.
It is. It's great.
Don't foul him. Makes 87% of his free throws.
Well, he does everything. Finishes at the rim. He can shoot the 3, makes free throws. He's been really good.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, the other thing for West Virginia would be that avoid a lackluster performance, which I think that with this coaching staff, you've seen that typically does not happen. But just that you're not sloppy or have a letdown. Those kinds of that. You take care of business, right?
Yeah. And speaking of the ball movement deal, I mean, that in essence is what Darren will say. Like we talked to him after the game there Friday, and we said, okay, offensively, what was going on in the first half? Didn't have great ball movement. So like it's an easy analysis. Okay, why aren't we getting good looks? Because you're not moving the ball. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest things that they will work on here, and they're repeating it obviously. But day in and day out, they want to get that ball movement to an absolute peak level of efficiency, because you're going to need that to get shots in this conference. Because as Brad says, when league play starts, I mean, people stand on the tops of your sneakers, and you have got to be able to get people open looks. And it's not easy if you're ding-donging around and pounding that ball on the floor and just kind of late second push. You got to get it.
Well, Georgetown got up and got in her face, too.
They did, and they put great size on Javon Small. I mean, for what Javon Small did, I mean, they put Micah Peavy, who's 6'7", 6'8", right over midcourt. Very similar to what West Virginia can do at times with Toby O'Connie on the opposing team's point guard. That's a big, long body forcing you outside there. It makes you work. That's why I thought that game was a good game for West Virginia.
They hedged better than anybody, and I thought they hedged better than Pitt, although Pitt was super successful with it. West Virginia adjusted after the Pitt game. Georgetown did a better job than anybody did at Atlantis because they saw what West Virginia wants to do, and they pushed West Virginia out further with that hedge and locked up Javon a little bit. He couldn't get it swung as easily. So West Virginia did a great job adjusting back to those adjustments. A lot of adjustments, Hop.
Adjustments.
Spreads on Stats brought to us by Conley CPA Group. 3 guys before the game brought to us by Gomart. Unwrap sweet rewards with Gomart this holiday season. Stock up on especially marked M&Ms at Gomart's. Enjoy double the sweetness during Merry Madness. That's Merry Hoppy with an M-E-R-R-Y.
Okay.
Plus, with the purchase of every product, you can earn bonus points and game tokens. You get all 4 tokens by New Year's Eve. You get 2,500 bonus points. No limit on how many times you can do that. Visit the Gomart app or gomart.com. Check it out at Gomart. Get that going there. Also, 3 guys brought to us by Tudor's Biscuits. Hoppy did not bring his travel mug today.
I didn't.
Because he lent it to someone because he's in the Christmas season. You don't need to lend it. You can buy a bunch of camo mugs. They only cost like $15, and they're 24 ounces. And then once you buy it, you can refill it every time you walk in there. I said you can refill it every time you walk in there for the price of a small coffee or of an iced tea. It's the camo travel mug at Tudor's Biscuit World. I mean, we're selling everything. You want to go from a cup, from a mug? You can also get yourself a Tudor's franchise. Yes, they are franchising over 70 locations. If you've got the inkling to get into that world, Tudor's would love to talk with you. Great brand equity. People know Tudor's. And you could spot one wherever you would like and run yourself a Tudor's Biscuit World. Franchise opportunities are available. All right. You guys ready to do some healing?
Mm-hmm.
Can we heal together, Hoppy?
Yes.
Let's get the congregation in order and let's textually heal. Textual Healing is brought to us by episode800.com. Again, we're recording on the 9th of December, which means that you have basically until the end of this week, till the 14th, to place an order for any of our items, the Mountaineer Popcorn, the Mountaineer Munch Popcorn, our Mountaineer Roasting Coffee. If you get it in before the 14th, we're guaranteeing that you will, in fact, have those items in hand before Christmas. We've already sent out 2 major installments of the Mountaineer Munch Popcorn, and more is going out as we speak today. We've got another big shipment going out. So now is the season, and we encourage you to check out all of our stuff at episode800.com. What do you have in your hand there?
What?
What was that? You just... What was it?
Homemade baklava.
Oh.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
We were gifted from some friends.
This is from Brent, Nicole, Gabriella, and Lila, Grace Sargent. And these are friends of the Hudson Clement family.
Oh.
This is the husband-wife that they...
You know them well.
They got that...
Oh, yeah.
They rent that house over in Star City
Yes.
and basically act like a bunch of college kids every weekend.
Yeah.
So she made us this baklava, which she tells me is absolutely unbelievably perfect. Excellent. And she's got one recipe item, an ingredient that she does not use on this, which she says makes all the difference in the world.
Something she does not use.
Doesn't put honey in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so she says it goes unbelievable with coffee. Oh, yeah.
How's it smell? Good?
Yeah, like gold.
That's good.
So when I
Unlike
saw her...
him, that's been in my possession.
Well, thank you for bringing it
Brought it in.
Because lots of times things that we're given don't show up.
Right, brought it in.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So she gave us that Friday at the game. She came over Friday to say hello, and I returned the favor right then and there. Gave her a loaf of bread.
Oh, well,
yeah.
Good job on your part.
Trading post was open.
Yeah.
Back in the day of bartering.
So check it out. Mountaineer Munch, popcorn. I just 1,000% guarantee you'll like it.
This goes well with coffee.
Perfect with coffee. Mountaineer roasting coffee.
A little game day grind.
Yeah. Jason in Charleston, South Carolina writes, I'm looking for some clarity on revenue sharing, and I thought you guys might be able to help.
Wouldn't it be pretty to think so?
What is the minimum revenue sharing amount required per school per year? There is no minimum. You could say we're not doing it. You could do that if you're a school, but you would then become the subject of ridicule because every other school in your conference would say, that school doesn't pay any revenue share. Why would you ever even think about going there? So basically, you're forced into it. 2, is there a maximum amount of revenue sharing cap that all schools have to stay below per year? Yes. So 22% is the number. You can't go over 22% internally as your revenue
of
share.
your budget.
Of your budget.
So it's a different number everywhere based on your budget.
22% of your budget. Now, okay, besides that, then there are other dollars to make outside of the university. NIL collectives can still raise dollars and still pay people to play or do whatever it is that they want to do for their NIL. But according to the new rules, there's going to be an independent committee that Deloitte, the great accounting firm, I think it was either Conley CPA or Deloitte that was going to get that. And Conley said, we're busy. We want to take care of the people in West Virginia. We ain't got time for that stuff. So there's going to be an independent council, an independent board that will have to review every NIL offer so that a school can't go to Hoppy as the quarterback at State U and say, we will give you $1 million to be on a billboard in our town, because the committee will come back and go, that's not fair market value.
I think that's going to be fascinating to see if that can be done accurately and fairly, because right now you just have a pay for play. So will that work? I hope it will. I mean, what you're trying to put in place is something that provides some equality. Mm-hmm. You know, you're never going to be able to compete with the biggest schools because they'll have more money and they'll still do like nationwide NIL deals, but it should provide some equity among sort of everybody else.
So this is definitely, on paper, this makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
On paper, this would help even things up. However, this will get challenged in court. What I just said, you can't pay Hoppy $1 million to be on a billboard, someone's going to challenge that. Someone will take that to court. It's inevitable. Hello, Three Wise Men. Joe in Texas, I want Hoppy to know that he had one more listener than usual Friday morning. I tuned in to hear his interview with Neil Brown. Neil continues to show so much class. Sure, he did not win enough, but it seems to me he did a respectable job with the level of talent we're able to recruit. West Virginia will never be able to sign 17 ESPN top 300 recruits like Oregon and Texas did in this class. I know if I had a football-playing son, I'd want him to play for a first-class person like Neil. Unlike some other former WVU football coaches, I will root for Neil wherever he goes. And remember, as much as we failed to achieve the number of wins we wanted, he is still the same coach who led us to 9 last year after we were the preseason pick to finish 14th. Neil, I wish you well. Texter says, I give
That was a really good interview.
Thank you. You know what makes a good interview?
The interviewee?
Yes.
Yeah. I thought what he was is what he is.
Yes.
He was transparent. He was classy. What do we say most about Neil Brown?
That he gave honest answers.
He gave you stuff.
Yeah,
he'd tell you why he went for it on fourth down or what the philosophy was behind that. I thought he gave you some really good answers, including taking responsibility for the things that were his responsibility in the program and what went wrong, what went well. I thought it was extremely well done, and you got a lot out of that, I thought. I think it also shows why he has and will have a number of offers to go coach, and he'll have his choice of where he wants to go next. That was a really good interview.
Thank you. I thought it was too, and I texted him and said I thought it was great for just what you said. And he took responsibility for what he was responsible for in an accurate way. Okay, not everything, because not everything's his fault. Okay, but he took responsibility for what he was responsible for. And then he said something, I think this was really interesting, that he said, he gave a lot of praise to Ren Baker, the guy who fired him.
Right.
The guy who fired him, and said it got to the point where it probably was best for both parties. Now, that's somebody who's got their head on straight and is able to look at a situation that's very personal, but look at it objectively, right?
Yeah, agree.
I mean, just
agree.
And he said sometimes new beginnings are okay, right? This is the first time I've ever been fired. It's not the first time things didn't go exactly as you planned. He had a really healthy view of all of this, and I think leaves this job with a lot. I got like 100 texts afterwards saying, boy, this is a classy guy, and he is.
And I thought not only just a healthy view for himself, but also a healthy and respectful view of this program.
Yes.
And what it can be and what it means moving forward. That's the other part of those transition guys. We've seen those can become disasters in transitions, and this one will not be, based on how Neil Brown chose to handle that. I thought it was outstanding. I really did.
Well,
that was a good interview.
Props to Neil Brown, who we've all known is a class guy. Props to him for how he handled himself in that interview.
Agree.
I mean, it's great that he did it with you. I mean, he could have done that with Thamel. Doug in Bridgeport, your interview with Neil shed some light on the last 7 years, gave a pretty clear picture on where the program is and what the expectations should be, unless the fans want to pony up $20 million a year and NIL to compete with Ohio State, Bama, and the rest of the elite. Be happy with competing for a Big 12 title every few years. Good interview, made great by Neil's candid answers. There's a segment of the fans that hated Neil nearly from the start. Going forward, we need to ignore those people. They seem to be drama queens that get some joy out of being miserable. Good job, Hoppy, and thank you, Neil Brown. That's Doug in Bridgeport. Texter, this is Sammy from Morgantown. I want to commend Hoppy on a really well-done exit interview with Neil. Thought he pushed him for answers when he needed, and as always, Neil handled himself candidly and well. Just like Bill Stewart was a couple unlucky bounces or plays away from being 10-plus wins multiple times, Neil was probably the same with keeping his job and being way more successful. I'll be pulling for his success in the future. Really don't understand the negativity toward Neil with anything he said other than just bitterness. As always, appreciate what you guys do. John from Parkersburg. So I listened to Hoppy's interview. I just have to say the loud asses that wanted him fired, with all due respect, didn't deserve him. Of course, I think he deserved another year with a schedule that's more in line with everyone else's. Then I'll evaluate. I really believe his next stop at coach will prove just how good he could have been. But that's our loss. It sucks. I wish him the best. Texter, can Ren make it a rule that the new coach is not allowed to wear a visor, wear a ball cap? Texter, Glenn and Scott Depot, Tony and Brad, can we buy some new shot clocks at the Coliseum?
That was an issue.
You might want to get those fixed. Texter, nothing better than watching the world champions on a late night flight after a long week in Vegas. Yeah, look at this. Back of an airplane seat there, and the guy took some kind of either got a towel or some kind of a jacket and used that as a device to spring that iPad up so he could watch the world champion Mountaineers flying back.
You have to be innovative when you're a coach. What?
That's a good T-shirt. Innovate if in coach. Texter, I was at the game tonight, pleased with the outcome. Some observations. Javon Small is a stud, plays good fundamental basketball, great shooter, defends without fouling. Really makes him go. West Virginia runs great offensive sets for the most part. Sometimes they get stagnant, ball sticks, If they would continue to run their normal offensive sets with picks and movements, the late shot clock desperation heaves would disappear. Coach DeVries probably has informed his young squad of that as well.
Yeah, but listen, there were very few of those. There were a couple late shot clocks that you had to get off, but I thought a lot of that was Georgetown's defense. Overall, West Virginia has been pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to say the other team gets to play too.
This guy also wants to know if he could do a crowdfunding thing for shot clocks at the Coliseum.
There was a lot of good
GoFundMe. He wants to do a GoFundMe account for shot clocks.
You guys probably had a monitor. There's a lot of good shots of the technician there who was working on that. Really, I got an inside view on that.
They rebounded.
Who, the maintenance
clocks.
people?
No, the shot clocks bounced back and worked. Didn't have to go to the alternate, so all came through. All good.
Yeah. Russell in Raleigh says, I'm undecided on who West Virginia's next football coach should be. But after your last episode, I'm pulling for Jeff Monken so we can hear more commentary from Tony about running the bone.
Monken would be an interesting hire, and you wouldn't come here and run the option. We talked about that. But there's a guy who is winning at a high level at a place where it's really difficult to win.
Such an intriguing candidate. We talked about that, and a lot of schools have had this conversation over the last few years, haven't they, about Jeff Monken?
Yeah.
Three guys' comments from Neil and Wren over the last week seem to confirm the primary obstacle to Mountaineer football, retaining talent in the NIL transfer world due to a lack of money. The evidence would back up the assertion. No other WVU coach has ever lost as many starters to another team as Brown has. That's entirely the result of NIL and portal. Making a long message shorter, college football is busted. I believe will continue to be broken until colleges are forced into some kind of a salary cap. Don't think many people want to watch a sport where the primary criteria to winning is spending more money than everyone else. That's an inherently unsustainable path that most of the major pro sports leagues in this country figured out decades ago.
Except for baseball, who just dropped a $750 million contract on Juan Soto today.
Yeah, ultimately, I think the only solution is for athletes to unionize and negotiate as a group with other schools. Until then, there will be too many leaders like Sankey and, how do you say the guy, the Big 12, Petiti? Yeah.
Well, the 22
looking for their own group of schools.
The 22% is supposed to be the cap.
Right. That was from JD.
It's a move in that direction. But as we talked last, the last piece of this, there probably is some athlete unionization coming down the road. Once I can figure that out. So one thing that's different, still different than the pros.
And that wouldn't be necessarily bad, because what that would be one unit to negotiate with, which should lead to
I know, but good luck, man.
But should lead to some commonality. Oof. Right?
There's just never commonality in college sports, is there? There just isn't.
Yeah.
There just isn't.
But if you had, that would be the first. If the players unionized, there was a union, then it would force some commonality.
But you have to almost do it within leagues to start. How does Ohio U have the same interest as Alabama? Yeah. How can that be the same negotiation? It's part of what's got you into this point of separation between different schools right now, that there's so vastly different entities between the different schools.
It would be like the service workers union and the mine workers.
So, and maybe that happens if there's further separation between schools. Maybe that happens, but you can't do it as it's currently
constructed. Get Cecil Roberts on the phone.
Joe in Charleston, you have a big dinner out there in Racine, Hop?
Oh, yeah.
Raise money for the NIL?
Yeah.
High Scopes, spreads, and Hop. What an atmosphere Friday. If that's a December non-con game, imagine what February will be like. What was the reason for the pushing and the shoving at the end of the game? TV cut away from it. I also just looked it up. There's a Scooter's Coffee 26 minutes away from me. I'm going to have to go there before the bowl. Joe in Charleston. Ed Cooley addressed that in his post game. He kind of just wrote it off as, he said, that's just kids talking blank in a line, which is what it was.
There was talking during that game.
Yeah,
that was a fun college basketball game. Yeah, between two teams that have played each other a lot, and there was some.
Are you saying the young men were having discussions during the ball game?
Discussions.
That's all right.
Welcoming Georgetown to Morgantown, I'm sure.
Daniel from
Georgetown
Beckley.
folks asking where to get some good, nice food after the game.
Wishing them best of luck in the rest of the season.
I would love some clarification at the bottom four resources we keep hearing about. What's the difference between the upper middle and the lower middle? Is the number $20 million above us or $5, knowing that difference means everything and what we should have expected from Neil as the next head coach. I'm leaning toward that we're closer to the number than further away, or else we would have heard we were in the dumps before Brown's seat got hot. The basketball team sure seems to have gotten the right guys with bottom four money. Is that because Tucker came at a discounted rate, or is basketball spent more wisely? Daniel and Beckley, they got Tucker on a discount from what we hear. What's the difference between the team that spends the most money in the Big 12, or at least did? Again, all of this is going to recalculate itself this coming year. But, it's generally believed that West Virginia was somewhere in 3.5, 3.7, 3.8. I know, I've heard, again, no one's got this down officially, right? But like Baylor was over $7 million. Again, from what I gather, Iowa State was the only team that had less that beat West Virginia this year. I don't know about others. Houston doesn't have anything, no. So they're toward the bottom of it. Again, Cincinnati probably doesn't have a boatload. So, yeah, to your point, Daniel, I don't think it's $500 million here and $3 at the bottom. There's something. I think West Virginia was 13, 14, but not far from the middle 10. But within hundreds of thousands of dollars. So probably think of it this way: you were below the half. You were below half.
Neil Brown addressed that, and whether it was 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, whatever it was, he addressed that is that you have to have, the reality is you have to have money, you have to have as much as the other schools in your league, or close to as much of the other schools in the league, to consistently compete. As he said, and this is accurate, that you may, Brad, occasionally catch lightning in a bottle. Mm-hmm. Like an Iowa State did this year. Okay.
Teams do every year.
Yeah, exactly.
Indiana's doing it right now.
Right. But you can't count on that. You can't count on that. And your odds are better at having success equal to the other schools if your finances are close to equal to the other schools. And then occasionally you do get lightning in a bottle and you compete for a league title.
Joe in Barbersville, Hoppy, wants you to break the news of West Virginia's new basketball coach. He says, I hope Ren allows Hoppy to break it on talk line. Football coach. Did I say basketball?
Yeah.
Excuse me. And not let Pete Thamel beat him to the punch. No offense to you, Tony, but Hoppy should be the one to break it. Would love to hear Ren being interviewed next week at 10:06 by Hoppy and letting everyone know the 36th head coach of WVU football. Look forward to your thoughts on how our new coach should be introduced. Well, I don't think there's any question. It should be Hoppy. What do you say, Brad?
The odds of me breaking that story, Brad, are 1 in 50.
For the first time, Morgantown Kroger gas pump. Turns out maybe someone from Big Kroger is a Three Guys listener and caught on to Charlie and his 2-car gas trick. Take a look at this graphic, ladies and gentlemen. Right there it says, full discount good toward one purchase of up to 35 gallons of fuel. But no, so Charlie would say this, it's the same purchase because he takes it out and then puts it in the next pump.
Still pumping.
He's still pumping. It is one purchase. He uses 2 cars.
Is it? But there's now a gallon limit.
Yeah, but he's saying he puts 20 in this car, and then he puts 15 in the other, so he gets 2 cars. He gets his 35 gallons, and he walks.
Okay.
The can't talk about the current administration, but Big Kroger definitely big former administrators, heavy listeners to Three Guys.
What now?
We got Kroger people listening to us?
Big.
The Krogers?
Former big-time Kroger people.
Okay.
Really quick. You guys have to leave the studio, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's keep that in mind then. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
See, he does that. He's had bad clock management up to this point. Now we make a couple comments. Now he tries to bring it over here.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the one that hasn't kept it moving.
Here, you want it? You want the truth, everybody? They ripped me before we started recording. I have to be out at 2.
That's
I have to be out at 2.
overstated.
We got a big clock sitting right there, and I've got these to read, and they're going to look at me like I'm the one that's doing it wrong, and they're over here having coffee clutch.
I mean, you're the one that's supposed host here. I see a couple texts, and we're right on time. I don't know.
Hey,
what
Three Guys, I got a hypothetical question for you.
Just grandstanding? Yeah, probably.
As we know from their time in the Big 12, Matthew McConaughey is the Minister of Culture for Texas. If you could install a minister of culture for WVU, somebody on the sidelines getting everyone hyped up, who would you choose? To make it more interesting, you can't say McAfee since he is employed to work as an analyst. I look forward to your thoughts. Thanks, Matt in Morgantown.
Fun question. Don't have time to answer, apparently.
Move on. Go ahead. Don't know. Don't have time.
This minister of what do they call it? The minister of what? Culture? I saw that there was one cutaway. I like McConaughey, and he was talking to Saban and really bending Saban's ear, and Saban just looked like Yeah, get away from me.
Don't tell me what's going on in the football game. I see exactly what's happening. Okay, just
Professor Vinny. Finally, Alabama agrees that we should not be playing each other. But what changed? It's a mystery. I guess we'll never know. Let's get out of this contract and help coach fill in the blank, insert name here, to be successful. Yeah, probably Alabama game probably not going to happen.
There's some talking about strength of schedule now, Hoppy, as first reported on this program with us talking strength. Some others are now talking strength of schedule.
yeah, okay, yeah, amazing.
Last one. The Bone. I was with you, Tony. Both my brother and brother-in-law played and coached at Harding University in Arkansas, who ran the table pummeling opponents with the Bone all the way to the D2 Natty last year. If you call it the Flex Bone, it's a sign you actually don't know what it is. Disclaimer. This statement is not intended to reflect the thoughts and opinions of the texter regarding the future of the WVU offense, signed by Andrew in Little Rock by way of Parkersburg.
By the way, you can have a mobile quarterback and occasionally run the option, but not be an option team.
You can run the bone. It's all about the bone, Hoppy. You can run some bone.
Does anybody? I don't think anybody says that anymore, do they?
That was my point.
I mean, maybe back in the 70s when a lot of teams did run the bone.
No, Brad clarified on our last episode. Those young men, those student athletes, are performing an offensive variation entitled the triple option sequence.
Young men like to run the bone. A lot of announcers talking about that. Army-Navy coming up. There'll be heavy bone running that game. That is one of the fun parts of bowl season, though. I do love seeing that. Wishbone, triple option, whatever you want to call it.
4 downs. You're going to use all 4 downs.
I'll tell you what, it's no walk in the park calling that. That's no fun.
Yeah.
That's a pain in the rump. All right.
Got to know the fullback's name.
By the way, congratulations to the texter on his, what did he say, his brother's world championship?
World champion.
Yeah, congratulations.
D2.
Awesome.
By the way, congratulations, WVU women, number 15 this week in the top 25 poll. Congratulations to Tony Gibson, head coach of Marshall University. And I had one other one. Oh, Kim Stevens at Tennessee. They got ranked. They're in the ranked top 25.
Yeah.
How about her? Lined up. So come here, Iowa. I'm going to give you a little something. Beat the Hawkeyes.
Kim can coach.
Wow.
If you've listened to this program over the years, you know that.
Iowa might be down one of their players from last year.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, 3 guys.
By the way, Women's Basketball Education Day was A+ on Friday.
I bet you were there, right?
A+.
Are your ears still ringing?
It was awesome. That was a lot of decibels in the Coliseum, both in the morning session and the evening session.
It's a high-pitched
it was great.
crowd.
It's the best.
3 guys brought to us by Comax Business Systems, keeping West Virginia's business data safe, secure, and efficient for 25 years. By Gomart, go for good times. Go for Gomart. Get a Gomart's rewards card. Go to gomart.com for details. By Lou Wendell Marine Sales in St. Albans. They sell family fun. Visit LouWendellMarineSales.com.
You all right over there?
By Tudor's Biscuit World. Start your day the homemade way with a Tudor's Biscuit. And by Conley's CPA Group, providing value beyond numbers. I've done my job. I've got these boys out of here before a major announcement is going to be made.
Since it was our fault it was slow, it's our credit that it got done, I think is how that works, right? Because we were getting blamed for not making it, therefore we should have the credit for getting it done.
We got out on time.
Back on Thursday with a recap of NC Central. And by...
What time Thursday?
I don't know, maybe the same time of the previous 599 episodes.
All right, just checking.
But also a potential...
Oh, we could do an emergency if something happens. Yeah, we're available. We're around. We're in town. Hoppy's on vacation. He still comes in. But why? Because he makes so much money doing this show. That's why. See ya.